Cable Bahamas has always been considered the innovator.
People can have confidence in Cable Bahamas as a mobile operator because of our past history. We've proven to the Bahamian community that we are in fact able to manage additional services as a telecommunications company.
Customers expect the best from Cable Bahamas.
The technology that we bring is revolutionary technology because we know that the Bahamian public, they deserve it, and Cable Bahamas is here to bring it to them.
We are ready. Turn us on.
Should future investors undergo a psychological evaluation? One government minister says yes. This as the Foreign Affairs Minister defends his warning to Bahamar's CEO. Will government pay Bahamar's foreign workers plus another man murdered in New Providence? We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Vonnie Tude and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, amid verbal sparring between the Christie administration and Bahamar CEO Sarkis Merlian, Labor Minister Shane Gibson asserted today foreign investors should be subject to psychological evaluations before they're allowed to do business in the country. Gibson also defended Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell, who has been heavily criticized by the opposition following his recent warning to Merlian. Mitchell also defended himself today, but he did it through song. Dana Smith has the details.
Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, because none of them can stop the time. How long will they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? Because all I ever had.
The immigration minister broke into song this morning while defending himself against criticisms from the opposition over his warning to Bahamar's CEO. While on his feet in Parliament, Mitchell suggested opposition members who criticized him for being inappropriate, out of order, and belligerent read Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Lord help us, Mr. Speaker. That's all I can say. Lord help us. You know, I want them to read. There's a very interesting novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe. It's called Uncle Tom's Cabin. You need to read it. They need to read it. This country needs to read it.
And the immigration minister wasn't the only person who hit back at the F&M. Labor and National Insurance Minister Shane Gibson also defended Mitchell's comments. Gibson said given the things Bahamar's developer has done since arriving in the country, from criticizing the Prime Minister to calling Bahamar employees citizens, psychological evaluations for future investors may be necessary.
When you look at the actions of Merlian, calling employees of Bahamas citizens of Bahamas. What's this mean the Bahamas? They're citizens of the Bahamas, not citizens of Bahamas. So what I'm saying is you have to now question whether or not it's necessary at this time to have these types of evaluations done on investors. You have to question that. It may not be necessary, but it causes you to question whether or not it is necessary.
They refer to them as citizens of Bahamas. Well, they're citizens of the Bahamas. But, Mr. Speaker, the nation of, you can imagine that. I looked up the definition of citizen. I was trying to see if I could stretch it long and far enough to understand how somebody could say these workers, even if you say my co-worker, my colleague, my mate, you know, my associates, you know, these new sophisticated terms they use. But citizens of Bahamas, the nation of Bahamas in the Bahamas, every single citizen of the Bahamas should be offended by that.
Gibson initially made the suggestion in the House of Assembly, where he also said Mitchell, as immigration minister, has a right to say to Merlian what he did.
The member for Foxhill said the right thing, and I didn't support and endorse everything he said, right? When a man come into my house and speak where I live, and he comes and he decides he don't want to live by my rules, I can't. If I give you permanent residence, I give it to you. You were a good corporate citizen, and under which policy I give it to you, and then I, in my determination, decide that you are now acting contrary to the best interest of the country. Why can't I say I'm going to take it back? Why can't I say that? What's the big deal with that?
For his part, when asked to respond to the backlash, Mitchell told NB12 he stands by his comments and dismissed F&M criticisms.
I found them unfortunate, their comments, and they're inflammatory. They're using these buzzwords. The particular one I take issue with is belligerent. This is the same kind of language that is used in the old slave narratives when the slaves rise up and say something that they disagree with. Then the slave is described as being belligerent.
Pointing to the speech in question, Mitchell said in his opinion, the F&M didn't read what was a rational and very carefully reasoned statement. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Well, the Labor Minister's suggestion that potential investors should undergo a psychological evaluation did not sit well with the opposition. Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner asked Gibson to clarify whether that is his opinion or the position of the Christie administration.
Maybe as a part of our overall assessment when we are looking at allowing developers to come to the Bahamas, we should look at having them do a psychological evaluation. Just to determine that they all developers. We don't discriminate. All developers. We look at having a psychological evaluation. That may be something we need to consider.
Mr. Speaker, what sort of signal are we sending to the wider Bahamian public? I mean, we can very well say the people that sit in this place might very well need a psychological analysis. And the reality is, are we standing here, Mr. Speaker, to offend those individuals whom we court to come to our country to be a part of the development of this nation? I, on behalf of people in here and outside of these walls, take offense to that statement. And I think he should clarify whether that is the position of the government or if that is a personal opinion.
Well, Gibson stood by his remarks and as a result of Butler Turner's comments, suggested MPs should also be evaluated.
I agree though, we should include members of parliament as well. Have a psychological evaluation of members of parliament and also developers, because what I'm saying is when you put people like us in key positions, Mr. Speaker, the country must make sure we are mentally stable. And so maybe it may be a good idea as a part of the process of selecting members of parliament, as with developers, we have a psychological evaluation done, just to make sure. That may be a good idea, because when we look at some of them, how some of us carry on, Mr. Speaker, yeah, start with me. I want one done with me too.
During his contribution to debate on the minimum wage amendment, Gibson also accused Melia of manipulating the gratuity process.
Look at what's happening right now with Melia, Mr. Speaker. Many of those employees in Melia will now be impacted by this minimum wage. Some of them, Mr. Speaker, would not have received an increase from the time they started working. Because the employer decided, listen here, all we're paying you is this minimum wage, that's it. And then they manipulate the gratuity process where they decide how to distribute the gratuity. And so they now control the gratuity and the wages.
Meantime, State Minister for Legal Affairs Damien Gomez fired back at Sarkis's Merlion today following the Bahamar CEO's assertion that government's decision to withhold the salaries of foreign staff is deplorable. Gomez said if Ismerlian wants those workers to be paid so badly, then he should do it himself. Kyle Joaquin has that angle.
If he's that concerned, he should pay them.
Gomez didn't mince words when asked about the funding of Bahamar's foreign employee salaries. In his letter to those employees yesterday, Ismerlian stressed that the payment of expat workers was their #1 task this week. Government said last week that it would not be paying the salary.
Now, as for who will pay Bahamar employees for the month of August, Gomez says he's not sure, as the only person who can answer that is the Attorney General.
As I said, you should speak to the AG about that, and she'll let you know.
Government had only agreed to fund the $7.5 million monthly salary of Bahamian employees for July. And with the first pay period quickly approaching, there has been no definitive answer as to who will pay them, the government or Bahamar. We reached out to the Attorney General several times throughout the day, however, no calls were returned up to airtime. Gomez also defended government's decision to switch liquidators. Government had only agreed to fund the $7.5 million monthly salary of Bahamian employees for July. And with the first pay period quickly approaching, there has been no definitive answer as to who will pay them, the government or Bahamar. We reached out to the Attorney General several times throughout the day, however, no calls were returned up to airtime. Gomez also defended government's decision to switch liquidators following the revelation that their...
Well, you normally ask the proposed liquidator when you're speaking to them, do you have any conflicts? Because we wouldn't know unless they tell us, or unless one of the interested parties informs us. So that's the reason that occurred.
So it wasn't a fault on the government's part?
No, I mean, we asked, and until the 11th hour, we weren't told that there was a conflict, and that was a glaring problem.
Government felt it would be inappropriate to continue with PwC's team and has already been in contact with 3 new prospects from Ernst & Young, Michelle Thompson, Karen Hutchinson, and Roy Bailey. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Meantime, opposition members of parliament, with the exception of Central and South Abaco MP Edison Key, walked out of the House of Assembly today, just as Michael MP V. Alfred Gray rose to give his contribution to the minimum wage debate following the alleged judicial interference controversy involving Gray's constituent who was released after being convicted and sentenced to time in prison. F&M MPs claim they will not listen to anything Gray has to say until he is kicked out of the Christie cabinet.
We felt the F&M has always fought for law and order and transparency. The message that was sent out to the world is that the politician or the government can interfere with judiciary and nothing happens. That is not right in this country. And we felt that in any first world country, he should have resigned. That he had called the magistrate in question. That's on record. That's on record. He admitted that. So we're not satisfied. You are not supposed to interfere or call a magistrate once a court case is going on.
Following an investigation into allegations of judicial interference, the Attorney General decided criminal charges should not be filed against anyone. Gray said he couldn't care less about the opposition MP's actions, asserting he is comfortable with who he is.
No, never. Not me. My name is Alfred Virginius Cornelius Gray, and no F&M, none, no matter what his or her name is, could disturb me mentally. I have moved on with my life. I'm enjoying what I am assigned to do, and I'm doing my best with that. As far as I'm concerned, that's their problem.